Welcome to Halachos to today's Shiva Rabbi Yakov Zev Shlita. Today's Shiva is sponsored by Mishpacha Center, Lili Nishmas, Rafal David, Ben Abchaya, Sheyichya with the Shloishim is after the Shloishim. Also Nidvas Abitzak Stern, the Nishmas Oviv, Rabbi Tzvi, Ben Moshe Aryeh Halevi, the Yotzer Trei Chav Tevis. And now Rabbi Yakov Zev Shlita.
Someone who noticed that the subject today was the halachos of coffee asked me a whole share about coffee. I told him, actually not. Actually, now we have two shiurim about coffee. After I started, I realized that it's really two different sugyas. But today we're going to focus on the halachos of coffee, specifically beginning with Hilchos Tefillin and bringing us all the way to Hilchos Purim and everything in between. As we'll see, there's a host of questions specifically about coffee. In other words, we're not talking about the bracha achrayna on coffee, if it's hot, or preparing coffee on Shabbos, or the big sugya of coffee and bishalakum. But coffee in its unique status, the feature of coffee is something you don't find by other foods, and I'll explain. Every other food, you could eat it raw or cooked. Coffee, which comes from coffee beans, as we'll soon see, is not edible. You can't eat the coffee even after you cook them. Coffee beans are grown to make coffee. And this presents a host of shaylas, beginning again with Hilchos Tefillin, and Hilchos Tefillah, and Hilchos Brachos, and Hilchos Zimun. Can you use coffee for Chamar Medina, for Kiddush, for Havdalah, drinking coffee out of the sukkah, etc., etc. I guess a Purim shayla, if you yotze shloach manos by sending coffee. But basically, before we enjoy the sugya, we have to know a little bit of the metzias. You know, the Chazon Ish said a mistaken metzias is worse than a mistaken halacha. And Baruch Hashem, we did our homework, and I'm going to try to share with you the metzias that's important for this sugya. Coffee beans grow on a tree. It's not like cholent beans that grow on the ground. It grows on a tree. Just like cocoa beans grow on a tree, coffee and cocoa beans grow on a tree. Why do we call it beans? No, welcome to the Olam HaSheka. Why do they call it buckwheat if there's no shaychus to wheat? But what's more fundamentally different between a cocoa bean and other beans and other vegetables for that matter, cocoa bean, as we said, you never eat. If you want to really appreciate this, you think about a tea bag. A tea bag has in it a tea leaf. The tea leaf has a very good taste and an aroma, but no one eats the tea leaf. That's why you keep it in a bag. Coffee is the same way. You roast the coffee, then you cook the coffee, but you never eat the coffee bean, the coffee grind. So how is it made? So again, I could explain it in detail, but it's really not negeya. But basically, what is negeya l'halacha? There are two methods of making coffee. Every method that today is used, first you take the coffee bean and you roast it. Now, roasting the coffee bean gets out the flavor. Now, our Zaydis did the same. They roasted the coffee beans, then they ground it, coffee grind, and then you cook it. Now, cooking gets out the essence, gets out the flavor of the coffee. And now you have what we're going to call, for a good reason, coffee soup. Now, don't get insulted. How dare you call my coffee a soup? You know, people are very much into coffee. But the emphasis, that's really what it is. When you cook the roasted ground beans, you get out the flavor of the coffee beans, just like a chicken soup or a vegetable soup. You get out the essence of the thing you're cooking. So that was the way that coffee was made for centuries. You cooked the coffee beans, you got out the flavor, and you drank it. With the advent of electricity, it was made much easier by using a percolator. And today they have the K-cups, the Keurig, which is the same idea. You buy ground, coffee grind, the ground coffee, and with electricity, you percolate it. It also gets out the flavor of the coffee beans. So coffee beans are roasted, they're ground, and then you cook it either in a percolator or today in the Keurig and the K-cup. The Then we enter the instant era, where everything has to be instant, and no one has time to make coffee, not even to make it with a percolator. So then they invented what's called instant coffee. Now, the truth is, it's the same idea. The company, whether it's Maxwell House, that used to be very popular, Taster's Choice, they take the coffee beans, the coffee grind, they cook it, and now you have the same coffee, we call coffee soup. But you can't sell it with the water, so they extract the water from that coffee that they produce. Now, there are two methods. The old-fashioned method is by removing the water, by cooking it, by heating it, actually, I should say. You spray the coffee with a hot air, it's around 480 degrees Fahrenheit, and the water of the coffee evaporates, and you're left with dehydrated, dried coffee crystals. That was the popular method of doing it. You remove the water, and you're left with the coffee. The chachma of the freeze-dried, it's supposed to protect the quality and the aroma. You chill the coffee, you freeze it, this is called sublimation, and you make it into like slabs of coffee. You remove the water by the method of freeze-drying, and now you have what's called freeze-dried coffee. So it's really not a geya how you do it, but coffee was made by cooking coffee, removing the water, and now you have the essence of coffee. Now, when you buy instant or freeze-dried coffee, you put back the water, and vayera, vayivaika, you're back to the coffee. And that's very appropriate. We live in a door of Gilgulim. That's what you're doing. You're recreating the coffee. They cooked it, took out the water, you put it back, chayz chalila, and now everything is fine. So it's what's negeya for us, even if no, you can't now make your own coffee, but basically there are two types. Percolated coffee, including the new recent K-Cup, which cooks the coffee in your own house. And then there's the instant coffee that they cooked it, removed the water, and you put it back. But now let's talk tachlis. What's the proper bracha on a cup of coffee? Whether it's instant coffee, percolated coffee. So really what's important, and I think this is really that gets us to the crux of the issue, how would you classify, what is the status of a cup of coffee? Is it 95% water, which it really is, but there's the strong flavor of coffee, whether it's the coffee grind, whether it's instant coffee, but essentially coffee is like raspberry syrup, just a different flavor. There's water and there's a flavor. So is a cup of coffee primarily water with a flavor? Or maybe, how dare you say coffee is water? Coffee is a very chashuva mashka. Even though there's so much water, but now it's a mashka that's called coffee. And you could think how many nafkaminas there would be. For example, is there bishul akum? When a guy makes for a yid a brewed cup of coffee, you go into a coffee shop, and assuming there's no problem of kashrus, but the guy cooked it mitchila batzayf. If it's 95% water, there's no bishul akum by water. If it's a mashka, chashuv mashka called coffee, it's oila shochem alachim, there would be bishul akum. What bracha do you make on coffee? If it's 95% water with a flavoring like raspberry syrup, then the bracha is a shackle. If it's a new mitzias called coffee, well, if it comes from a coffee bean, and the coffee bean grows in a tree, and it's grown to make coffee, it might be a eitz. So this question, as we'll see, affects entire Arachayim, which is today's sugya. But another question which you also have to clear is, how do you identify a coffee powder? Instant coffee, freeze-dried, or whatever it may be, which brand. Is that the essence of coffee? Is it coffee? Is it just a powder? So if you think objectively, which means not what do I do, because who said that's right, what should I do? There's a strong reason to believe that a cup of coffee would be a bar priyates. Because let's think, where do we have an halacha, an analogy to this, that you cook something and you have a soup, what brach is it? So you don't have to think too far. This is a sugya in brachas avlam betes. Pshita, maya de silka, kesilka. You have beet soup, the bracha is hadama. Maya de lifta, turnip soup, is hadama. Maya de kula shalki, kekula shalki. The Gemara is saying clearly that a vegetable soup is a boire pri hadama. Now, as I told you, it's a The sugya of soup is a big sugya. We once gave a whole share about this because it's a big question. How could a vegetable soup be adama? The Gemara earlier in Brachas Lamed Ches says if you squeeze an orange, may Paris, the bracha is shackle. So there's a Rosh, there's a Rashba, there's a Mordechai, all say different pshatim, which is not negeya for us. But basically the Rosh says when you cook something, you get out more of the flavor than when you squeeze it. So juice that's squeezed is a shackle. Vegetable soup that's cooked is a hadama. The Rashba says that since the vegetables are eaten that way, so if it's an adama, but juice is a fruit, an orange, supposed to eat the fruit, not to make the juice. The Mordechai says a soup is an oichel, you either eat it or dip bread into it, but apple juice, orange juice is a mashka. But at the end of the day, we could say very carefully, there are numerous vegetable soups that Medina Gemara and Shulchan Aruch and Siman Reish Hey, the proper bracha is Bayrei Pri Adam. Now, generally, our soups today are a shackle. If you have barley or lakshin, it's a mezainis. But definitely, al Pidina Gemara, there's something called a vegetable soup that's a Bayrei Pri Adam. Now, I ask you, if that's the case, if you have a, quote, a coffee soup, or as we call it, a cup of coffee, which you cooked the coffee beans, the ground coffee beans, and you made it into a coffee, shouldn't that be a real Bayrei Pri Ha'etz? Okay, vegetables you sometimes eat and sometimes you cook it. But coffee is made. That's its Eloi, that's its function, that's why you plant coffee beans, to make coffee. And if you want a more custom-made raya, the Gemara, the same Gemara in Brachas Lametes discusses Maya de Shifta. A Shifta is Sheves. Sheves is a spice which is typed as dill. Some call it anise, but it's really the same family. The Sheves dill or anise is not eaten plain. It's only eaten when you cook it. And the Gemara says that on this Maya de Shifta, on this Sheves soup, the brach is Bayrei Pri Adam, because that's the way it's used. And that's why, as early as the Halachos Ketanos, who lived just about over 350 years ago, in Chelik Aleph, Siman Tes, was asked Mamish this question. Keitzad mevorchen al kava. So his tshuva is, hakavi einen echgum kishuchai, el koila noise, first you roast it, v'royu lachila, ukishadachin noise, then you grind it, umavashlei b'mayim, Mamish like I told you, Ru'uya hoya levarach alav Bayrei Pri Hadama, ela the amadabar levarach shakel. But the meaning is to make a shakel. Now, when he says Bayrei Pri Hadama is a pella, and Taka de Marakatzia in Siman Reish Dal, the Bank of Emden asks, why Hadama? It should be 8. So there's a Chuvas Pula Sadik that says that it's a Toya Seifa in the Halachos Getanis, and it should be Bayrei Pri 8, because the coffee bean grows on a tree. Soup is a vegetable, Adam. But look what he said. It should be a Bayrei Pri 8. That's according to the revised Girsa. But the minig is to make a shakel. Now, why the minig is we'll soon see. But 8 makes a lot of sense. And he's not the only one. The Pana Me'irais in Chelik Beis, Siman Kuf Tzadik, writes, Meid Alai Shamayim V'Oretz. That when I was in Vermaisa, in Worms, the city Worms, the Gadol Hadar there, he called it Shmuel Satin, made on tea a Bayrei Pri Adama. And I asked him, I argued with him, but the whole Welt makes the Shakel Nibadvarei. So he told me, but a minik toys, I don't want to follow. And tea is a Bayrei Pri Adama. Now, I want to explain, why is tea Bayrei Pri Adama? A tea leaf grows on a tree, just like any other Bayrei Pri Ha'etz. The answer is a Pri Ha'etz is a Bayrei Pri Ha'etz. A leaf is not a peri. You know what it's like? It's like today they have heart of palms. Heart of palm comes from a palm tree, which is a huge tree. But still the minig is to make a Bayrei Pri Adama. Why Adama? Because you're not eating the Pri of the 8, you're eating the 8. The heart of palm is the center of the tree. So very similar is a tea leaf. It's not the Pri 8, it's the 8, it's the leaf. So we see La Halacha, the Panamiris records a minik to make on tea a Bayrei Pri Adam. No, according to that, there's no doubt On coffee, the bracha is bar priyates. And the Panamaniris himself is noita to make on tea a bar priyadama because it's mamish like mei shlokis. Now, that's a chelik aleph simin tzadikei. In chelik beis that I mentioned, he mellows and he says, but I don't want to be different than everybody else, so I'll make on tea a shakel. But the boys say it's not so outlandish to make on coffee or eights and tea adam. You'll say, how could this be? If I eat plain coffee bean or plain tea leaf, there's no brach at all. But on a tea, hadama and coffee or eights, zok panameiris, what's the kasha? Sheves, the same thing. No one eats plain dill. Plain dill, you don't make a bracha. But if you cook the dill, so now the soup becomes hadama. So why can coffee be your eights and tea for the same reason hadama? Don't forget, this is why coffee is grown to produce coffee, not to eat the beans. In fact, he brings a Beis Yosef, the Panamiris brings a Beis Yosef in Siman Reish Dalid, that on May Veret, I mean, you take rose and make a soup out of it, the bracha is like the Veret itself, Bar Priyadama. Why? Because that's the way of using it. So to say ha'etz on coffee or adama on tea is not outlandish. But as we see, both halachos ketanos and the panameiros who say ha'etz are made that the minig ha'olam is to make a shakel, and the big question is why. But now we see it's a bigger question than just a tmimistic why. The big question is why is it different than mei shlakos, than mei sheves, various soups that are bar priyadam. So it's probably the earliest tshuva that discusses this, and I want to tell you, it's interesting. There are hundreds of tshuvas, and Mishnah Berurah, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Chayadam, or Chashochan discuss coffee and tea. The Mechaber and the Ramah, to my knowledge, no place mentions coffee or tea. Obviously, they didn't have it. Now, they had it in China in the 9th century, but it didn't come to Eretz Yisrael, didn't come to Poland where the Ramah lived. It probably came after the Ramah's time. Halachos Ketanos was about 100 years after the Ramah. That's when it came to the Yiddish circles. But be that as it may, the earliest tshuva that discusses coffee, the Perach Mata Are, Siman Mem, approximately 300 years ago, he was asked the bracha, what's the proper bracha on kava, and why is it different than mei shlaka, that's hadama? So he says a brilliant info. He says, I'll tell you a different quote-unquote soup that should be not our eitz or adama, should be mezainis, and yet it's shakel. No. Which drink do we have, primarily by a shalom zach, I'll give you a hint, that should be a bar min and mezainis, but yet we make a shakel? Beer. Beer is barley, beer hops, and frek toisvis in brachas lamed chesed, a blot earlier. Why is beer a shahakol? Why is it different than mei shlokis and a vegetable soup? So Taisus teretz is 3 truths, but basically Taisus teretz is that beer only has the tam of the beer hops, and va'oid b'shtiya oim shahakol. Taisus says a tremendous yesod. Not every cooked fruit or vegetable becomes a soup. Vegetable soup, sheves soup, fine. But beer is not eaten like a soup. It's drunk like another drink. And Taisus says, cross the board, drinks are never the original bracha. Drinks always are shakel ni'bedvarim. That's why on beer, there's no mezainis, shakel. Orange juice, even specially grown oranges, is a shakel. And zakti perach mata arain, that's why on coffee and tea, even though it should be ha'etz and adama respectively, but since it's a drink, the bracha is a shakel. And then he quotes Chuvas Harash in Klal Dalet, Siman Tezvav, that has a shaila about someone cooked a barley drink for a chayla. The chayla should be a bar mina mezainis. Kol sheyesh b'chamesh mina dagan b'mezainis. Zok dirash, no. Since it's only the klitas tam of barley, and the mashk is clear, there's no pieces, it could be shulam, he says, is for the juice. It's different than soup. where you cook it to eat the vegetables also, and therefore this barley drink for a chayla is not a mezainis, it's a shackle. Oh. Now, isn't the similarity striking? Listen, think about this. Madach on a barley drink that's essentially boire mina mezainis, and kel sheyesh bechameshes dag mezois mezainis, still we say a drink is a drink and it's a shackle, and we overlook the fact that it's a mezainis. So, coffee, that's not a mezainis, it's a regular fruit, and you throw away the coffee beans. No one eats the coffee beans after they're cooked and roasted. Shouldn't it be a regular drink? And a bona fide flavored water, we'll call it, and therefore the bracha is shakel niyabitvari. In other words, drinks always are shakel. So now we see there are two categories. Soups could be hadama. Drinks are always shakel. So coffee and tea is like beer. That would be a shakel. And I have a whole long list. You'll have to trust me. From beginning with the Pri Chodesh, the Chidah, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Rav Shulchan Aruch in two places, Kaf HaChaim, all say L'maisa L'Halacha on coffee and tea. The bracha is shakel. If you want to think about something for homework tonight, why then is chocolate, the food chocolate, why isn't that a bar priyates? Because chocolate is not a mashpil like a hot cocoa. Chocolate is an eichel. And the cocoa beans are ground and pulverized and processed. True. But it's not like applesauce, because here it's grown to make cocoa, to make chocolate. And Shem Zalman ibn Cheshleim Simon Sadigal, he cut in bays, says for 30 years, I wondered about this. I was nice with Gedolei Yisrael. I didn't get a satisfactory answer. So that's a tzorach here, because chocolate is an oichel. But linyanenu, coffee and tea, that's a mashka. We have toises that compares it, that really would be comparable to beer. So to me it was so gishmak. We started with a very intimidating question. Coffee and tea should be like soups. And now we have no less than 4 sugis why coffee and tea is shakel. Mei shlokos, mei sheves, beer, and we have the rush regarding barley. So now Rabbi say, Baruch Hashem, we have the Yesodis. Let's begin with Hilchas Brachas, and we'll go in order of Shulchan Aruch afterwards. But I want to repose our original question. How would we identify a cup of coffee? Is it 95% water with a flavor? Or is it a new drink called coffee? And that's what we're going to see as we proceed. Imagine someone that makes a very chashuv cup of coffee, and he's so busy with the cup, after he finally makes it, he makes a boyer priya eitz. He's a little, into his coffee, he wasn't thinking. But if you make a boyer priya eitz on a cup of coffee, are you yoitze or not? Until today, you would say, what's the shayla? Any child knows, you make a eitz on a shackle, you're not yoitze b'diavad. But now we see that probably will be yoitze b'diavad. Because according to Gedolei HaPoskim, it's a bar priyates. I saw the Tzemach Tzedek, and this is in the Chelik of Masech the Brachas Perek Vav, the end of Sif Cotton Hay, who says on Shtiyas Tea the brach is shakel. B'diavad, if you made on Tea a bar priyadama, you are yoitze. And it's pashit, according to that, if you made a eitz on coffee, b'diavad you would be yoitze. The Yalkut Yosef and Tafel Amates says beferish, you're probably yoitze b'diavad with an eitz on coffee. What to me was beautiful, and Shimbu Sechi Nafshechem, let's say you did make a cup of brewed coffee, percolated coffee, a K-cup of coffee. You bought instant coffee, and you made a cup of regular coffee. And you made an eitz on that. But the Evid, are you yaitz with an eitz on a cup of instant coffee that you made? So we would say, what's the difference? Instant coffee, percolated coffee, coffee is coffee. No, not really. Because Lamaisa, the instant coffee was transformed. They took coffee beans, they cooked it, they removed the water. Now it's like coffee powder. No? If it's like coffee powder, it's probably like potato powder. Mashed potatoes, the bracha is bar priyadama. But you make mashed potatoes from instant powdered potatoes, the most poison, I think that's the minig Yisrael, to make a shakel. In other words, let me put it very bluntly, if you make a cup of coffee from coffee grind, from a K-cup, that's the essence of the coffee beans. And we could say that's a new mitzvah called coffee, and maybe b'diavad you ate with bar priyates. But if you took instant coffee and added water, you know what that is? That's 95% water. It's the flavor of coffee. And I saw talk in the Sefer Sein Beracha, page 450, he compares this to a mincha shloima in Siman Daled, that on wine and grape juice you make a bar priyagafen. But if you take wine and grape juice and you reduce it to the concentrate, and then you add water, the bracha is shaka. So it comes out of Moedik Chiddush. B'diavad on a coffee that's percolated, which is the essence of the beans, b'diavad ha'etz is good. But on coffee made from coffee powder, whether it's freeze-dried or instant coffee, that's water. Now, I can't say l'chol hadeyis, but the best eitz is to halve cup and make a shackle on coffee. But it's very yitachin that the coffee that's roasted and that you made from the beans, at least b'diavad would be a bayre priyetz would be yaitz. Now, the next question I thought was an academic question. Someone told me there is something on the market that is mamish this question. Imagine someone eats a roasted coffee bean. As they take bean, they roast it, they add a little bit of sugar, it's flavored. What bracha do you make on a roasted, edible coffee bean? In other words, if you eat a raw coffee bean, there's no bracha. It's inedible, it's like a raw potato. But our question is prepared coffee bean. So I would say, l'chayra, if it's edible, it's a bar priyetz. What's the shayla? You'll be alarmed, then you'll say, wait a minute, we once learned, talking with Renton here, based on a Mishtabur and Reish Beis, if cut lamed test, if you prepare what they call today candied orange peel with sugar, the bracha is shackle. So if that's the shackle, why is the coffee bean bar priyetz? The chilek is pashut. Why is the candied orange peel a shackle? It grows on a tree. The answer is because an orange peel is not the priyetz, it's the klifa. Klifa is not the original bracha. But coffee bean is the original coffee bean. Why shouldn't it be a bar priyetz? Now, if it's inedible, like in a raw state, then there's no bracha. But if this is, you tell me it's edible, it's sold, it's marketed, and the Kaf HaChaim and Takas in Reish Beis, Ayin Aleph, does say that if it's edible, then on a cocoa bean, the coffee bean, the bracha should be bayre priyetz. Now he does quote other shittas that the bracha should go down, maybe adama, maybe shackle. I'm not really sure why, but lemaisa definitely we see that the coffee bean, if it's edible, is not different than any other pri. Now if you look at the Mishtabur and Reish Gimel Yud, he speaks about a zangvil type of a spice that you prepare it, you make a bayre pri adama. So the truth is coffee, maybe you'll say coffee bean is like a tavlin, it's not a pri, but it's, again, the Chaim does bring shittas that on a prepared coffee bean, the bracha would be a bayre priyetz. Now, someone will be alarmed and say, I have a chocolate-covered coffee bean, so there are two reasons to make a eitz. First of all, the bean is a eitz when it's prepared, and the chocolate should also be a eitz between me and you. So then, that's more tzad to make a bayre priyetz. Now, agav, they sell today coffee beans, which is all chocolate. It's shaped like a coffee, but it has maybe taste a little bit, but that's certainly a shackle. I'm talking about the original coffee bean. Someone asked me the shayla. He was getting tired, he wanted to continue learning, but he needed a little bit of caffeine, and he's a erlacha from a bacha. So he took a spoonful of instant coffee, weiter, and he's ready to learn. You don't need the hot and the sugar and the milk. I had a chavrusa did the same thing, so I found it very, deja vu. My chavrusa took a spoonful of coffee, and it's going down. So we would be tempted to say, this is a Beferish Gemara. The Gemara in Brachos Aflamet Ches says, if a person eats a food with refuah, l'mashal, he needs prune juice, and he would never drink prune juice, but now he needs it. So the Gemara says you make a bracha. Kiven the isla hanomine bayi bruche. Even though you're doing it l'refuah, you make a bracha. But that has no shaykhs to our shaykh. Because prune juice is an eichel. A powdered coffee, instant powder, is that an eichel? It's hard to believe. Even a bean is not an eichel. And if you make regular coffee, then it becomes an eichel. But taka, it makes very much sense to say that on coffee powder, even freeze-dried, is still not edible. You know what it's like? A child that sneaks into the pantry and sees this cocoa, and he takes a spoon of raw cocoa. There's no taste to it. You don't make a bracha on raw cocoa. Raw cocoa and raw coffee, the chayra, should be no bracha whatsoever. Now, Lamaisa, I did see a chiddush. The Piskei Teshuvos writes that if you take the coffee powder, and you add sugar, then it's a bayre prio eitz. Now, I'm not sure that's correct, because Lamaisa, it's not an oichel. You add sugar, that overpowers the bitterness of the coffee. But maybe you'll say it's a shahako, but the coffee powder is nishtana in ganzen. That can't be a bayre prio eitz. Even if the sugar will make it edible, but this is, in this situation, it's not the original prio eitz. So at best, if you take coffee powder with sugar, at most it's a shackle, but I can't believe it should be a bayre prio eitz. Next question, someone told me, Ma'aseh Shai in a certain yeshiva, there were two bachim arguing about a pshat in the Tosfos, and they made a bet, whoever's wrong is going to have to drink black coffee. Now, many people drink black coffee, but in a yeshiva, that's a taboo, black coffee. B'kitzah, what bracha do you make on a hot cup of black coffee? And this is a geya for a person that wants the caffeine, but he has no time to make a coffee. He puts hot water on coffee. What bracha do you make on black coffee? In other words, coffee without the sugar or the milk. So again, we'll think, what do you mean? What's the shayla? The Gemara says, an oichel, a mashka, even the refu, you make a bracha. But the question is, if you don't enjoy a black coffee, only drinking it because of the caffeine, or because you lost the bet, in that situation, why is it an oichel? Water, if you don't enjoy, the Gemara says, no oichel. Plain powdered coffee, we said, you don't make a bracha, it's not an oichel. So if you added up two zeros, so it's weiter, not an oichel. Now, if someone enjoys black coffee, no, so he enjoys it. But if you're just doing it for the caffeine, l'chayr, there would be no bracha. So again, that's the unique status of coffee. Is it an oichel? Is it mashka? Is it not an oichel? It depends on the hano. So listen to this. There's a Chedushi Agra on Masechta Brachas. It's called sometimes Imrei Noyam. But in the end of the sixth parak in Brachas, the Goyen is quoted as saying, if you drink tea without sugar, you don't make a bracha rishayna. It's talking about tea. Unless you're drinking it litzmoi. Now that I could understand. In other words, black tea, if that's the right word, tea without sugar, coffee without sugar and milk, if you're only drinking it because you need the caffeine, is not a mashka. Now the Goyen does say, if you drink the tea and you enjoy it without sugar, and about you make a bracha. And it seems that that's the same would apply to coffee. Rabbi Yashiv in the Shiurim HaMasechta Brachas, Amid Tuf, Pei Beis on the bottom, says this Goyen was talking that you had a lot of tea scents, and you made a very strong tea with a little bit of water, which that you don't enjoy. But if it was flavored that it's drinkable, then the Goyen would agree, you make a shakali b'tvar. And I believe the same would be true with a black cup of coffee. If a person says, I enjoy coffee, why should I add milk and sugar? Then it's milk and sugar. Some people are real connoisseurs, want plain coffee. So then you make a bracha if you enjoy it. But a person drinking a black coffee just because of the caffeine, then according to the Goyen, no bracha is said. So basically we see that this question, is coffee water with a flavor, or is it a new metzias of coffee? Depends how you use it. Now let's go up to the Seder of Shulchan Aruch. I hope I'll have enough time, and I think we should, of all the various shahs regarding coffee. Question number 1, Hilchos Tefillin question. Someone wants to learn in the morning before davening or after davening, and he wants to do what's right, that you should wear tefillin as long as possible. Don't forget Miyikidin, you're supposed to wear tefillin kol hayoim. But he thinks, I'm learning, I have a gufnaki, let me wear tefillin and learn before or after davening. But he needs a coffee. are you allowed to drink, wearing tefillin, a cup of coffee? So in Shulchan Aruch Siman Mem Sif Ches, the Mechaber says, you're allowed to eat achilas aroi while wearing tefillin. No, so coffee is achilas aroi. Comes again, the Mishnah Berurah quoting a Shulchan Shleimer, that's the mirror of, and he says, the Mechaber that said you're allowed to drink aroi, eat and drink aroi, was in those days that they wore tefillin kol hayoim, so then it was inevitable you have to eat or drink. But today we only wear tefillin b'shas tefillah, even achilas aroi is awesome. No. According to that, you can't drink a coffee while wearing tefillin. But I did see the Chura Shai in Chelik Aleph Reish Tezvav. He doesn't quote the Shulchan Shleimer, but he does say that we have no right to make Eigen Gzeiros, that today that we wear tefillin only an hour, don't eat or drink. And he's convinced you're allowed to eat and drink aroi even while you're wearing tefillin. The Menhagi Chasam Sofer Aleph Yud Ches records that the Chasam Sofer gave a shir and drank coffee while he was wearing tefillin. Zainish and Dina Manhagis Gimel Tezvav also says this. So basically, I think we could say that halacha, if someone wants to wear tefillin and learn avada, it's mutter to drink a coffee. In fact, I saw the Avnei Yoshvi Chelik Zayin Siman Aleph says maybe even according to even the Shulchan Shleimus talk about achilas aroi with tefillin, but a drink is aroi, and that'll be mutter even bisman hazeh. So basically, of course, I don't mean Chalit Mezalzel and Kedushas tefillin, but if someone wants to wear tefillin extra time, but he needs a coffee, so be machmir in the mitzvah of tefillin, and keep the tefillin on, and drink a coffee. Next question, which is a little more tricky, is drinking a coffee or tea before davening. So again, what's the problem? So I'll tell you, there seems to be a major problem. There's an Issa Chomer of eating or drinking before davening. Why do I say Issa Chomer? Because it's based on a pasuk. The Minchas Chinuch considers it might even be a deraisa, or Seichlu al Adam. To eat or drink before davening, the Gemara calls it Gaiva. La'achash in his Goazeh, after he has his food, then he comes to daven. Okay, it's not a deraisa pashtis, but the emphasis, the Rambam and the Kolboy, the Tur and Siman Pei test quotes these Rishonim, that even drinking water is asa before davening. Then he quotes the Avi Ezri that says, no, water is mutter because it's not gaiva. So water before davening is mutter according to many Rishonim, and that's the way the Mechaber Paskins in Siman Pei test. Says the Radvaz, one of the earliest Achronim, water is mutter. But water with sugar is gaiva and it's asa. Now, according to the Radvaz, coffee is certainly asa. Gaiva. Now, a later Achroim, the Prichodash, writes in Siman Pei test that Lamaisa in Mitzrayim, where he lived, people cannot daven without their coffee, and therefore coffee before davening is a tzairach tefillah and is mutter. Azoi schreibt the Prichodash. But coffee with sugar is vadei gaiva and is awesome. Now, the Mishnah Berurah, in our Siman Pei test, Sifkat and Chav Beis, he says, Lamaisa, if you put sugar into the coffee and make it a chashuv mashka, that's taka awesome. But if you put the sugar in your mouth and drink it as such, then it's a tzairach for the coffee and it's okay. And that's taka the minig. The Alta Yidden, though, they still have they have the kotzkut, the sugar, the sugar cubes. That's mutter before davening. But poik chazim ayama debar, people make a cup of coffee and tea with milk with sugar. So I saw the Bejana Rav and Das Torah. He says that since the heta is tzarich tefillah, and today people can drink coffee without milk or put the sugar cube in their mouth, so the coffee is one big tzarich tefillah, and the Bejana Rav says this, the Aruch HaShulchan says this. You know, the coffee has to, quote, hit the spot. So I say, you know, the Goyim have a BC, AC. By Yidden also we have a BC. There are some people, they say, why'd you do that? It was before my coffee. You know, before their coffee, they're in Einim Matzuva V'Oisach. You know, they can't function. So there's the BC, there's the AC. Lamaisa, people today they need their coffee. And the B'Zhan Rav, the Aruch HaShulchan say, coffee is mutter before daven. Okay. Now, what made a big Roshim, I had a Chavrusa, said, Taka, the Haibani younger man, he says he doesn't go for these special coffees. Coffee's a coffee. But for Shabbos he buys a special flavored coffee, the coffee before davening, the Kavod Shabbos, he has a special flavored coffee. Okay, I didn't say anything, but I'm thinking now, I'm thinking then also, I didn't want to say anything then, but now I could say something. Is it so pashut before davening, allowed to have a special flavored coffee on Shabbos? Taka, there's no issa of drinking before davening Shabbos because there's no chi of kiddush. Because you're in davening, there's no chi of kiddush. But the issa of drinking before davening, there's no different Shabbos and weekday. Now I saw the B'zhana Rav and that shtickle and Das Torah says you're allowed to drink coffee before davening, but to take special kli kesef like derech ashirim, that's awesome. What's needed is mutter. Gaiv is awesome. The only question I'm thinking is maybe on Shabbos, since you're going to classify it as covered Shabbos, so it's not gaiva. But I think l'chayr during the week, if someone puts in an effort to have his coffee with all the hidurim and the mahadrim and the mahadrim, that might be us according to the B'zhana Rav. But Shabbos, is a shtickle of a tzorachin to me. Maybe taka the covered Shabbos shaboy outweighs the problem of gaiv. But definitely during the week, we drink coffee, to daven, and that's it. There's a concept which is brought in Shulchan Aruch Kuf Nun Hey. It's a Gemara of Pas Shachris. Person supposed to eat Pas Shachris. It's a very important start for the day. The Butchacha in Kuf Nun Hey says those that don't eat Pas Shachris, there's a limud schus. Maybe they yaitzu with their coffee. So we see coffee being more than just flavored water. The Pri Megadim writes you don't have to have bread. Pasta babakistin with mayim is okay. So up to kafachayim and sifkot and chav gimel, that's coffee or tea. So we see coffee is not just flavored water, it has a pas shachris quality to it. Now, of course, even if you say coffee is bimkoim pas shachris, but then again, a bimkoim koyin is not a koyin. So better would be to have pas shachris, but if you can't, the coffee with the cake would be okay. People have a minig, that they dip their mezainis, their cake, their donuts, whatever it is, into a hot coffee. That's the Hamish version of Dunkin' Donuts. That's what we do. But the emphasis is, it's very possible that for those that are medagdik on Davash Tibula B'mashka, to wash, like we do on Pesach when we dip the karpas into the salt water, that you would have to wash if you do that. Why? Raise that pel. Mr. Brewer in Kuf Nun Chesiv Cotton Chavav quotes a Derech Chaim that if you dip the lekach, the cake, into schnapps, since schnapps is not a mashke, it's just zeya ba'alma, it's not tibula b'mashke, you don't have to wash. Zog the Mr. Brewer, but if it would be taka predominantly water, then you would have to wash because you put the lekach into the mashke, is tibula b'mashke. Now, our coffee today, even if it's brewed fancy coffee, is saif ko saif, it's roiv mayim. And taka, the Paiskim say, for those that are makbid tibula b'mashka, so taka Dunkin' Donut, that type of mezainis into coffee, you would have to wash, or at least make sure that you don't do it, because would be a chiyuv netila. A big sugya, when you learn Mr. Brewer, you get all flustered. The Mr. Brewer in Kuf Ayin Dalet, Sif Kot Lamed Tes, quotes from a Chayyada. If you have coffee at the end of the meal, you would have to make a bracha. Now, why is that? Something that's part of the Suda does not require a bracha. Dessert does require a bracha. The Chayyadam explains that coffee is consumed the end of the Suda to la'akel as-samozain, to help the digestion. Now, I could explain this. Coffee is a stimulant. It makes things move. It makes a person a bit hyper. It helps nikiyas. It also helps in digestion. It just stimulates things. And coffee is la'akel es-samozin. So therefore, it's not part of the Suda, and you have to make a bracha. Mr. Brewer writes two words, ve'enei muchrach. It's not necessarily true, but the minig, he says, is make a shackle on the sugar, and that would help for the coffee as well. Now, this is hard to understand. If the coffee is potter from a bracha, so we'll make a bracha on the sugar. So it means they make a bracha on sugar and eat it separately as a candy, and then drink the coffee. But Lamaisa, Poik Chazi, the Welt does not make a bracha on coffee at the end of the meal, and I understand very much why. Today, our coffee is consumed not as a akal asamose. Especially in breakfast, it's part of the breakfast. Rabbi Nissen Karel, it's in the Seif on brachas, the Chuvas on Hagis Gimel Ayin Beis, all say that today coffee is part of a Suda, it's no different than any other drink, and therefore no bracha is required. What I found beautiful, the Birchas Habayis lived 100 plus years ago, In Chaf Aleph Chaf Gimel, he says, if you drink black coffee, that's la'akal samazim. And then you make a shackle. But if you drink a regular coffee, that's part of the Suda, and you don't make a brach. I understand that. Today we drink regular coffee, it's part of the Suda. But I also saw in the Birchas Abayis, on a black coffee, the brach is shackle. Obviously, he felt that indeed, that Lamaisa, it is a bracha, there is a taste to it, if you enjoy it, you make a bracha. Next question. Someone has 9 people that ate, and they were short one for a zimun. So someone is sitting there who didn't eat, so you know what, please eat or drink, because I can't, I'm full. Give me a good cup of coffee, I'll drink it, and then I'll become part of your zimun. Can you use coffee or tea for a 10th person for zimun? So, first of all, this is a problem. Because the only person that can be counted into zimun if he ate or drank enough to make a burn nefashos. If you hold on a hot cup of coffee, there's no burn nefashos, there's no shayla. We're talking about he lets it cool off. Because he's going to make a burn nefashos on the coffee, is he counted into zimun? Boys, this is a beautiful nafkamina. The Mechaber says in Kuf Tzadik Zayin, Beis, on any food or drink, you could count them into the zimun except water. Now, the question is a cup of coffee 95% water, so that you can't count them in? Or maybe it's a cup of coffee. So the Or L'Tzion in Memvav Lamed Bey says, Ikroi mayim leichashi litztarif. Coffee is essentially water and it's not part of the zimun. However, most poskim that I saw, the Maritz, that's the Dushinsky, original Dushinsky Rav, and many other poskim say, what do you mean? Coffee is a chashva mashka. And that's why it seems that the poskim seem to agree that if you have a cup of coffee, kahoigen, a regular cup of coffee, and you make a bar nefashos, as Rav Sternbuch and Aleph Kuf Gimel stresses, you make a bar nefashos on it, then you could be counted into the zimun. Next question, a beautiful shayla. Someone asked me this question recently. I've heard this question more than once. He loves the smell of brewed coffee. When someone makes a K-cup of coffee, for him is Gan Eden just at the smell. Do you make a bracha on the smell of coffee? Or, I'll tell you a more common question, you walk by a coffee shop, you don't have to walk too far for this, and you smell the tantalizing smell of coffee. Now, I was told, this is the truth, that the exhaust fan of a coffee shop goes out to the street. So when you walk by, you're almost overwhelmed by the taste, you're almost paralyzed by the smell of it, and you decide to go in and buy a coffee. But that's the kavanah. It's made to attract customers. So it's made to give a reach. Do you make a bracha on the smell, aroma of coffee? Now, until today, I'll say, what? Coffee? But the truth is today, it's a perfect example of anoisen reich toiv b'peiros. It is a peiros. We don't make a bar pre-8 on a cup of coffee. That's because it's a drink. But it is the reich toiv of peiros. And the emes is that the Mishnah Berurah in Reish Tezayin, Sifkat Tezayin, quoting a Ber Heitev, says if you smell coffee chama, shereicha noide for adam nena tzarech levarech berachas asher nasa reich toiv b'peiros. It's a simple application of a Gemara that on a fruit that has a fragrant smell, like an esrog, not on sukkis, you make a bracha. Why is coffee different? Now, of course, he does stress that reicha noide, if it has a strong smell, but why not? So someone asked me, so if that's the case, if you walk in Borough Park in 15th Avenue and 44th Street, when most of the week you smell a very distinct smell of bread, you should also make a bracha? I told him, you're right, you're mechavan to Ramah. The Ramah, on the end of Reish Tezayin, if you smell pas cham, you make bracha reach toiv b'pas. So if bread you make a bracha, certainly coffee. Now, lemaisa, our minig is, on bread we don't make a bracha, because there are a few problems with making a bracha on bread. First of all, Mr. Berurah already says the smell of bread is not strong enough to make a bracha. I mean, it is a distinct smell, but not strong enough. Also, says the Mr. Berurah, the other poskim say this, not Mr. Berurah, that bread has other ingredients that forms the smell of it, the flavoring, the sugar. And b'chalal, the bracha, nice and reach toiv b'pas, others wonder where you got that nusach from. There are 5 nuschayis, 5 brachas in the Gemara. There's no bracha on pas. So the minig is not to make on pas. But the same Mishnah Berurah that says not to make on bread, in the end of Reish Tezayin, says in Sif Cotton Tezayin to make on coffee. Why? Because it's the real thing. It's a peri. It's a strong smell. There's no additives. Now, this I think is pasha. If you smell instant coffee, that is no bracha. That's not the original peri. And I should add, when you open a cup of instant coffee, there's a strong smell. That is as sheker as can be. That is a spray. It's like when you buy a new car, they have a special new car spray. And I kid you not. Olam HaSheker. So coffee that's instant, there's no bracha on it. Coffee that's percolated, but it's flavored in the various flavors that these K-cups have, is also not the smell of coffee. It's other flavoring, so that's no bracha. But it does make sense that coffee that has the original coffee bean smell, cham, reicha, noidif, there should be a bracha. Now, lamaisa, the Welt does not make a bracha. I think I know why. The Kaf HaChaim, Aruch HaShulchan, and Berchas Habayis all say that the minig is we only make a bracha on something that's ikroi l'reach. L'mashal, if you have besamim or an esrig during the year, and you grow a esrega for the smell, but a food that's produced to consume, even though it has a strong fragrance, you don't make a bracha, even though your kavan is l'hariach. Now that's the Chazon Ish Shita also. Although the Mishnah Berurah does not go with that, he requires a bracha on coffee. But if you have a Kaf HaChaim, Aruch HaShulchan, Berchas Habayis, and the Chazon Ish, so maybe that's why we don't make a bracha on the smell of coffee, not because it's not reach type of peiros, but because it's an oichel essentially. Question: someone cannot drink wine or grape juice. He's a diabetic. Bekitza, is coffee or tea a viable option for kiddush or havdalah? Is that what we call chamar medina? So we know chamar medina, the Shulchan Aruch says, only should be used if there's no wine available. But if someone can't drink wine, well, so is coffee or tea an option? So you're wondering, wait a minute, bishleima schnapps is a mashka, is a chamar medina. Beer, the Ramah says is a chamar medina. But coffee is 95% water. And that's taka why many poskim, the Machzor Yo and Simon Lamadalit, he says, coffee, Chamar Medina, it's water. There's no bishalaka by coffee because it's rive water. The Abiyah Oima has a tshuva that you make kiddush on coffee, it's a brachal vatol. Because it's ikra imayim. So here we see our question once again reappears. If you hold it's ikra imayim, how can you make kiddush and avdallah on ikra imayim? And it's even better to make on apple cider, which is pure apple juice or real orange juice. But coffee is mostly water. But there are mekilim. The Tzitz Eliezer Chelik Yudal Membeis has a thorough tshuva that basically it's not water. It's a very prominent drink called coffee. Rav Moshe in Chelik Beis Siman Ayin Hey, he talks about tea. And he says that the definition of Chamar Medina is it's not consumed when you're thirsty. In other words, I give you a cup of soda and you say, I'm not thirsty, forget it. Okay. I give you a cup of tea, you say, I'm not thirsty? I didn't think you're thirsty. I want to be mechabed you. Something that you drink as a kibud without being thirsty, that's Chamar Medina. And Rav Moshe says, b'diavad, tea is a Chamar Medina. He doesn't say coffee, but obviously huadin. So we could say the following, it's better if someone can drink wine to hear kiddush or avdallah from someone else, but if coffee or tea are the only option, yesh al mi lismich. We had a shaila, someone wanted to drink a coffee before Ma'ariv on Motzei Shabbos, after Shal Shud is benching before Ma'ariv. So if you knew the halachos, it's not so outlandish. Mi iked din, you're allowed to drink water before Havdalah. Now, granted, the Welt is very makbid, als the chashash sakana, but mi iked din and Shulchan Aruch allowed to drink water. So the Or Letzion in Chav Beis Zayin writes, you're allowed to drink coffee also before Ma'ariv. Now that's a beautiful shitase, because his shita is that coffee is water. It's not, Lagabi other halach we mentioned earlier, you can't use it. We said Lagabi the question of Chamar Medina Zichanat, it's not, it's, and he says that here also, to drink coffee before Ma'ariv is water, is mutter. But the Welt does not drink any water, and certainly not a coffee. But I was thinking, the person that is making to drink coffee before Ma'ariv and Motzei Shabbos should not turn around and then drink and then make Havdalah on coffee, because that will be a tat to the Sasvi. Next question. It's Friday night and someone wants to stay up but he's very tired. Can he take a caffeine pill, which of course is the extract of coffee or the like? It's caffeine that's stimulating. Or question number 2, can he drink a black coffee? What's the shaila? Is it a question of refuah? So one thing is clear: to drink a black coffee, even if you never drink coffee, is mutter because it's meichel bria. Like we said, it's an eichel. You make a bracha on it if you enjoy it, and avada, it's not a problem of refuah. Caffeine pill, I saw Rav Shlomo Zalman and Shulchan Shlomo Shin Chaf Aleph Chaf Gimel Minchas Yitzchak Gimel Chaf Aleph say caffeine pill is a refuah. It's not an eichel, and why should it be mutter? Now this to me was a chiddush because it's not. I agree, it's not a eichel, but he's not sick. It's not a refuah. He's tired. Maybe a sleeping pill that the person has a problem, can't fall asleep. Maybe that's a refuah. But a caffeine pill is just a stimulant. Evidently, they held the fact that it's in a pill form that would make it a problem of refuah. I know that the Betzina Rav was matir to take a caffeine pill, and I understand why. It's not a refuah. You finish the Afikaiman on Pesach, but you have a Seder, part of the Seder left to go. But you're holding Achet Chatzfenu Shina. He's tired. Can he take a cup of coffee after Afikaiman to finish the rest of the Seder B'koyach? What's the Shaila? Eim Afyonach Pesach Afikaiman. But if you look at the Mishnah Berurah and Tov Pei Aleph Sif Cotton Aleph, he says you're allowed to drink mild, light drinks and tea. He does not speak about coffee. The chayra, coffee is stronger flavor than tea. But I did see, and Taka the Knesset Agdoila and Sif Cotton Beis says that coffee after Afikaiman is asa because it dilutes the taste of the Afikaiman. But if you look in the Orchos Chaim, the Spinker quotes that the Chasam Sofer had a coffee after the Afikaiman. The Birkei Yosef is meyed, that's the minig to drink a coffee after Afikaiman. Obviously, it's stronger than tea, but at the end of the day, it's still basically water. So we seem to be going back that coffee is maybe even a prominent mashka, but it's still water, and water is mutter after Afikaiman. Someone asked me he wants to percolate coffee on Yom Tov, if you're allowed to do that. Now, he swore to me, and I'm not taking chayes, but he said there's no doubt about it, there's no malacha. He keeps it on, he keeps water in it, just adding the grind and making the coffee. So l'chayr is no shayla. If there's no malacha taking place, now he was wondering, it's not shavel l'chol nefesh. I told him, first of all, probably today, percolate coffee is shavel l'chol nefesh. And also, by oichel nefesh, you don't need shavel l'chol nefesh. It's only by machshirim, like showering. So if you have a percolate, there's no malacha, it should be mut. Taking a caffeine pill on a tainus, we just had a Sarah B'Tevis, is that considered oichel? L'chayr not. Caffeine is not an oichel. Even if it originates from coffee, it's the chemical, it's the drug of the coffee, but it's not an oichel. Yom Kippur, we don't take caffeine pills because it's a refuah and we're machman any type of consumption. But it makes sense that on a tainus, a caffeine pill should be mutter, it's not an oichel. Sukkah's questions, someone asked about drinking a coffee out of the sukkah. Now he's obviously not makbid to drink water in the sukkah, but maybe coffee is more of a kfiyas, it's like drinking wine out of the sukkah. That could be his asa, miyakididin. But this I saw the Paiskim say that wine taka is considered a kfiyas, it's asa chutz l'sukkah, but coffee is not wine. In fact, the Paiskim say clearly that coffee is mutter chutz l'sukkah unless you're makbid on even water chutz l'sukkah. We have a Purim shaila that when after Ma'ariv on Leil Purim, really the fast is over. But the minig is to continue fasting, I'll cover it for the Megillah, I'll chashiv the Megillah until after the Megillah. B'shas Chag, a person is allowed to drink because the fast is over. Water is mutter. Is coffee before the Megillah for someone that needs it, is that mutter? So the Chayodam in Kufnun Hey Aleph, Kufnun Hey Hey writes Beferish L'Tzayrich Gadol. If he won't be able to listen to the Megillah properly, he's allowed to drink a coffee. The Chasam Sofer had a minig also to drink coffee before the Megillah. Obviously, it doesn't take away from the chashivas if you have water before the Megillah. So coffee is considered water in this regard. Another Purim Shaila, the question of sending Mishleach Manais coffee. So if you send a cup of hot coffee as Shleach Manais, when the person gets it, it's probably iced coffee. But that's no Shaila. It's good. Mashka is good. I'm talking about if you send either the coffee grind, a K-cup, or instant coffee. So Pashtas, this is our Shaila. How do you identify coffee? Is it an Eichel? Is it a Tavlin? So Dr. Sternbach in the Chuvas in Hey Reish Lamadal, what's the Shaila? Even if it's a Tavlin, you Yoitza, Mishleach Manes, it's nothing less than a Pharisee Gemara. Dav Zayin Amar Aleph, Dr. Gemara, Shalach Le Mole Kasa the Zangvila, Umole Kasa the Palpali. He sent them spices, so why isn't that good for Shalach Manes? So even if it's only a spice, it's not an Eichel, you still Yoitza. But he says, like the Chabina Rav and Aleph Tzadik Beis, that those spices were edible as is, maybe coffee would not be good to Mishlayach Manas. And Achvin Chavir, let me just briefly tell you just a little bit about the question of Bishul Akum. Bishul Akum seems to be a serious problem in any type of coffee we consume. Whether you buy a jar of instant coffee, it was made by Maxwell House, a Taster's Choice, they're not Jewish. They roasted and cooked the coffee. K-cup that was made by a guy, or the coffee grind, same thing, made by a guy. Worse yet, you go into a coffee shop, that's the guy owns it, and even if there's no problems of kashrus, a guy made a cup, mitchel atzayif. And you go on a plane, and the stewardess makes a cup of coffee for you without milk, and everything is kosher, but the guy made a coffee from the beginning to the end. Maxwell House made it, and the stewardess made it. And taka there are machmirim that coffee has the problem of bishul akum. Why is the Welt makel with coffee? Believe it or not, Zok the Prichadash, since it's ikra imayim, the coffee is bottle, and just like there's no problem of bishul akum by beer, there's no problem of bishul akum by coffee. So Seif Master b'machshava tchil, it comes out that coffee is essentially water. And in a certain sense, it's even less choshev than beer. Because in Kuf Yud Dal and Aleph, the Mechaber says you're not allowed to drink beer in a tavern, even if it's kosher. But the kfiyas of drinking in a goyish tavern, Chazal Asad, similar to the Isurim of Chasnus, like other Isurei Drabanan. But the Paiskim say regarding coffee, there's no problem. You're allowed to drink coffee in a coffee house of a goy, if there's no kashrus issue. So, what's the answer to our original Chakira? What is the status of coffee? It's basically water, a prominent drink, albeit, but it's not like beer, it's not like wine. We should drink coffee because on the hate, I couldn't talk to you.
Black coffee is better sometimes.
Coffee soup is better. Hey. Hey. Hey, hey, hey.
Got up to the tea the last time. Good, yeah.
Tea?
Said it. The last thing.
So is that?
Ja, sure is
Right. The same Egen Shirter like your biggest character Smith for today's year. And like your biggest character Mishpacha Center for sponsoring today's year in the Nishmas. For David, Allah Shalom Ben Zachariah, Sheikhia, David the Shloishim. Also the sponsor today, the Nishmas, Rabbi Chiel, Tzvi Ber Moshe Aya Levi. Yotzai Stof Tevis by Ritzig Stern. There's awesome Torah B'Tzara Chaim. There'll be a seekum of today's year in a few minutes.
Good, you know? I can find out on my
2 minutes.
All right, 2 minutes, good.
What?
Way to make pick Pringles.
Giraldo Farms, Colombian coffee. Giraldo.
Then they grind it. Then they fry the paper. They took out 80% of the water, and they took out 80% of the water.
That's my national tennis.
That's right. But here's one part of the potato that tastes. It's a binder. Any starch is not the
So you grind if you know how to bean to have a little
starch is
put it through the
I have
strainer.
potato flake.
Black
Potato.
Yeah,
The water's removed, it's brown, and you put it down.
fine, everything.
It's like coffee.
You like
Potato
cooked
starch,
water.
potato powder, it's like
cheap.
this.
Buy a whole can of
Unless it's realistic.
Yeah, what's the free service?
No, it's not for the kids. What's it? It's a balsa. In Yiddish, it's a balsa. It has no seed of potatoes in it. I give you, I think about this way now. I give you $1.
Here's the grind. Here's
It's not the liquid, it's the original potato.
this or you bought it now.
I do all these ways. Sometimes I buy a bag and
There's people
Starbucks
they
has
have a grinder also.
electrical.
How do they add it into the back end, they use it for
I do all these things all the way. Starbucks ready made or like what I get from the store. Whatever, you know.
At the end, it's like it's
Kind of the bed. I go to the
No, I'm just going. I'm 50.
When we were yeshiva, they said it's Machmet Moshe.
I'm familiar with guys from 60 guys. I'm into 16 or 47.
One graded it, and one used the blend. Now it's a food process.
I'm there. I'm not there.
Simcha, whenever you're ready.
By Shabbos, because you're not allowed to fast after Chatzos. So mainly, if you drink it,
Okay.
Shabbos, if you take it, what's
It's different, but yeah, but
you're not allowed to fast after Chatzos.
doesn't that matter
So
for
that's
davening?
why.
The guy who parties
Otherwise, you daven you don't need coffee.
It's Reza. I verstehe, but the Maisen
know how I know?
davening is still on the
Tell you how I know, and everybody knows, because whenever there's late tish, there's no supply.
This is done. Everything is a share for itself.
I'll say a little way.
Don't put in milk.
Blocking the camera.
Okay,
Okay, everybody say everyone had time by now for the second coffee, so we can mamshit the shir and the sikkim, old halachos and yet legabe coffee. The zeman, up to the zeman, the tea, last shot. Everybody said the sikkim for today's shir. You finished your coffee, say bar nefashos, if you had a kadesh dias revius.
Okay. Just a short time we learned here, Bez Hashem, as we see, tea and coffee are unique amongst almost all of the foods. It's never eaten in any form as an oichel, and it's grown, its purpose, its ilui, is to make a mashka. And that's really the crux of the issue. So how do you define in halacha coffee? So basically, coffee is made by taking the coffee beans, it's first roasted to bring out the flavor, and then it's cooked So although it seemed like the halach would be that it's like a soup, like a mei sheves or a mei yirakos, which is adama, so coffee should be a eitz, but the Paiskim seem to agree, and that's the minig ha'olam without doubt, that it's not like a soup, but rather it's a drink like beer. It's not a mezainos, but rather a shakel. So again, minig ha'olam on coffee and tea, the bracha is a shakel niyah. But b'diavad, if someone said a eitz on a percolated cup of coffee that comes from the original coffee grounds, the bracha, the eitz would be kosher b'diavad. Hadama on tea is the same thing, but b'diavad, hadama on tea should work. Instant powder coffee is a little worse than the coffee grind in it, the fact that it was changed, so maybe even b'diavad, the eitz would not be good. Someone ate a roasted, edible, candied coffee bean, that might be a boyer pri eitz, as we explained, because that's the original peri that's rendered edible. Those that hold it's not a eitz is because it's just not a food, it's not a pri, it's only used for drinking. A spoon of powdered coffee is like a spoon of cocoa, which both do not need a bracha, it's not an oichel. Black coffee or tea without sugar would be totally, if there's hana, you can make a bracha. If it's just consumed for the caffeine of it, or to drink down a pill, one person takes black coffee, then no bracha should be said. It's mutter to drink coffee when a person is wearing tefillin, it's a shtiyas aroi. The minig is, before davening, to drink coffee with sugar and milk, and someone pointed out, Taka, the minig is to say Birchas HaTorah first, and that would certainly be mata the minig of drinking before davening. Coffee could substitute pas shachris, but better pas shachris, the real thing. A dip donut into coffee, or any mezainis into coffee, for those that are makbid and tibul v'mashka, that would require netilas yadayim. We don't say a bracha on coffee or tea at the end of the meal, because today it's always as the meal, not la'akal asamazing. If someone drank a coffee or tea and said a bar nefashis, he could be counted into the zimun. Best to avoid the reyach of coffee, because there are many sveikis. If someone will mamish enjoys it and he makes this reyach just for the smell, then avada the bracha should be hanoisim reach type of Paris. If there's no option, there's no chamar medina available, he can't drink wine or grape juice, then for kiddush and Abdullah one could use coffee or tea. After shalashudas, the minig is not to drink water or coffee, but if those that are makel, water is mutter and coffee is a tzarachi, and maybe it's more than just plain water. Coffee, caffeine pills on Shabbos, those many places are machmer, but there's a tzat to be makel, but certainly if you drink a cup of coffee or you drink cola just for the caffeine, there's no shayla, that's a mayach labriyim, and on Shabbos there's no concern. After afikoymen, tea is mutter, and it seems the minig is to be makel even with coffee. A tainis, a person could take a caffeine pill except for Yom Kippur. Drinking coffee chutz l'sukkah is okay. B'shas atchak, a person can have a coffee before the Megillah on Leil Purim, even though most of the tzibur is still fasting. You can use coffee as a shloach monais. There's no issa bishul akum by coffee or tea, and there's no gzeira like by beer. Coffee is not as choshev as beer. Chamar just... No, so that's the halachos ketana. The halachos ketana is not sure it's in the test, but for Chamar Medina, it has to be intoxicated. We don't pass on that way. You make on I just forget, I had it, you know,